at that time you want to quit. You're like, oh, I lost my whole tank. You feel What's up, guys? Welcome back to Chris Aquariums. So the 100-liter tank is doing quite good. I had a bit of a problem with the goldfish tank when I came back from work this morning. So I'm going to show you that footage quickly. So what happened here was the filter at the back was in a strange angle where it was touching the wall. And because of that, the water had been dripping down the back and running out the back all day while I was at work. So take a look at the amount of water that's missing and imagine that spread out across the floor. So that's what I have to deal with right now. It always happens, but it's one of the joys of fish keeping. So nothing too bad, it's always something that can be dealt with, but it got me thinking about a challenge that I saw going around YouTube, the My Worst Day in Fish Keeping challenge. And I think it's something that not a lot of people like to talk about, especially when you're on YouTube. You want to showcase your tanks at their finest and their best, and no one really wants to showcase the bad things and the mistakes and all the problems that they have learning along the way. So the challenge is essentially to talk about the worst day that you've had in your fish keeping. I've been in the hobby about 7 or 8 years now, so I've learned a lot along the way, and a lot of times you learn by trial and error. YouTube and fish channels weren't a big thing when I started out, so I've learned a lot through there, but a lot of the times it's been trial and error and making mistakes. So let's get right into it. My worst day in fish keeping. This must have been about 3 or 4 years ago, and I still have footage of the tank, which I'll put into the video as well. But it was my goldfish tank. It was 60 liter, smaller than the one behind me, and I was going away on holiday. I was going for about 2 weeks, and I didn't want to leave my tank unattended. I thought things can go wrong, food-wise or tank-wise. Power goes out and the heater goes. So I wanted to move the tank somewhere where I knew it would be looked after for the holiday period. And that was probably my first mistake. With all good intentions, I decided the best thing to do would be to move my tank to a family member who had kept fish in the past and would be able to look after them while I was away on holiday. So time came, I drained the tank water down, netted all the fish, put the fish in a bucket with water from the tank. I took the aquarium plants and I put them in the bucket as well so that they had places to hide, wouldn't be too stressed. Yeah, and then I drained as much of the water out the tank as I could because I had to transport it. Drove it through to my family member's place with the fish in the buckets. And when we got there, you have to set the tank back up. So did exactly that. We filled it back up with water, used dechlorinator, of course, took the fish out of the buckets, put them back in the tank. But to be honest, it was a bit rushed. I was leaving for holiday the next morning. This was late at night. It took a lot longer than I thought it would to drain the tank, to get all the fish out, to move the tank. It ended up being a big mission, and it was late at night. It was a bit rushed. I had holiday, leaving the next morning. So the water going into the tank, we tried to get it a good temperature, but it probably wasn't as good as it could have been. The correct process, of course, to put fish into a new tank, or at least new water, is to acclimate them, temperature acclimate them to the parameters of the water. And you've seen in my videos, I do this with new fish all the time now. But yeah, it was entirely brand new water. The filter was new. The fish were, I think, a bit rushed getting out of the tank and put back into the tank and in a bucket, and the jostling in the car ride over. And I said to this person, and I said, you know, if anything happens, don't feel bad. These things can happen. So it's nothing to do with them, it was completely on me. But I left, and the next morning I got the message just saying, you know, all of the fish that you put back in the tank have passed away, didn't make it. So it was my two big, beautiful breeding pair of angels, some neon tetras, I think there was a platy, but it wasn't good, and I felt terrible. I knew that I had done the wrong thing. It was with good intentions, so they'd be looked after while I was away, but it wasn't executed properly at all. And I learned a lot from it, and I've never done that again. Every time, in fact, it's Tuesday now, I came back from holiday yesterday. It was only a 4-day holiday, but the tank stays exactly where it is. The fish get their holiday food block. I have a person who comes to visit, you know, depending how many days they have certain visiting times, just to check up on everything. And I've done this numerous times since, and every time it's been perfectly fine. But I had to go through that learning curve, and I guess it's not something I'll ever be doing again. So that's my story. That is my worst day in fish keeping, and where I wiped out my entire tank, well-meaning but poorly executed. And you know, I've learned a lot since then. You can see, if you go back on my channel, the videos from 3-4 years ago are terrible. But I think the important thing in the hobby is to share the difficulties that you go through so other people can learn, so that they can continue the hobby. You know, at that time you want to quit. You're like, oh, I lost my whole tank. You feel terrible. But the only way to progress is to learn and to help others learn, which is where the YouTube community and all social media and the internet is a great way to share information with real fish keepers, sharing real trials and tribulations and victories as well. So something a bit different for the channel, but I got inspired by one of the YouTube fish keeping channels, Ray's Aquariums. I'll put the link in there if you want to watch. And I thought it was a cool thing to share. So I've got to clean up some water on the floor, which is not the end of the world. And I hope you like this video. And I'm going to be doing a couple of different things in the time to come. But keep well, enjoy the hobby, and I will see you next time on Chris Aquariums.